Good morning, little masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times. I'm the Man of the West, also from the Prancing Pony podcast. We're spending Third Age Thursdays this series in the poetry and songs from the Lord of the Rings. Now, even though we've spent the last 4 weeks in Rivendell, we're not ready to leave just yet. It's time for us to sit next to the fireplace and ponder some things. In The Ring Goes South, Bilbo is sending Frodo off with some extra gear, namely the mithril mail shirt and his sword, Sting. "Very well, I will take it," said Frodo. Bilbo put it on him and fastened Sting upon the glittering belt. And then Frodo put over the top his old weather-stained breeches, tunic, and jacket. "Just a plain hobbit you look," said Bilbo, "but there is more about you now than appears on the surface. Good luck to you." He turned away and looked out of the window, trying to hum a tune. "I cannot thank you as I should, Bilbo, for this, and for all your past kindnesses," said Frodo. "Don't try," said the old hobbit, turning round and slapping him on the back. "Ow!" he cried. "You are too hard now to slap. But there you are. Hobbits must stick together, and especially Bagginses. All I ask in return is take as much care of yourself as you can, and bring back all the news you can, and any old songs and tales you can come by. I'll do my best to finish my book before you return. I should like to write the second book if I am spared." He broke off and turned to the window again, singing softly. "I sit beside the fire and think of all that I have seen, of meadow flowers and butterflies and summers that have been, of yellow leaves and gossamer and autumns that there were, with morning mist and silver sun and wind upon my hair. I sit beside the fire and think of how the world will be when winter comes without a spring that I shall ever see. But still there are so many things that I have never seen. In every wood, in every spring, there is a different green. I sit beside the fire and think of people long ago, and people who will see a world that I shall never know. But all the while I sit and think of times there were before. I listen for returning feet and voices at the door." It's a beautiful set of verses, nostalgic, thoughtful, but also sorrowful. I mean, he thinks of the past and his adventures and joyful experiences, but he recognizes that his time is limited, that the world is going to go on without him, and that he will not have the time to experience everything and every place that he would like to see. And I feel that. And not just places or experiences. He thinks about the people of the past, as well as people who will see the world of the future that he won't see. At the end of the day, though, he thinks of the people who are closest to him, the people he cares about. And now that I finally have the collected poems of J.R.R. Tolkien, somewhere on this shelf over here, I think, the 3-volume set of books edited by Christina Scull and Wayne G. Hammond, I can dig a little deeper into poems like this. They write that in 2 pages of manuscript workings, Tolkien devised nearly all of the final elements of "I sit beside the fire and think," as well as a few phrases he chose to abandon, of "shallow waters cool," of "islands," of "shadows on the sea," before they wonder aloud when Bilbo would have had a journey on the sea at this point in his life. Now, at one point, apparently, Tolkien was considering having Bilbo say this as though it's a future thing, writing near the opening lines, "or in future I'll sit," etc., as in, "I'll sit beside the fire and think," instead of "I am present tense doing so." He also had the last 2 stanzas initially reversed, and what is now the last one read a little bit differently. "But all the while I sit and think, I listen for the door, and hope to hear the voices come I used to hear before." Then he swapped the 2 last stanzas, changed the lines in that one, and boom, the final published version, just like that. Now, Scull and Hammond point out that the origins of this poem, along with the one we looked at last week, "When Winter First Begins to Bite," can be dated to the period between late August 1940 and autumn 1941. And they suggest that some of Tolkien's own personal reflections are included. Quote, "He would have been nearing his 50th birthday, 3 January 1942, with memories of the 1914-18 conflict and of times of normality made more precious during a new war. His second son, Michael, then in the Army, had been injured in December 1940, and his youngest son, Christopher, aged 17, would be called up before long. Tolkien also would have been aware of former students then in service and of colleagues in occupied territory. Well, next week, we're going to shift gears, leave Rivendell, and look at the Song of Durin. But for now, folks, thank you for joining me for this week's Third Age Thursday. Stick around for more poetry tomorrow as I continue First Age Fridays and our read through the glorious Lay of Lathian. Check out patreon.com/Tolkien Times to learn how you can support the show, get an ad-free feed, join my content council, get a bonus weekly episode, and more. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Please follow or subscribe in your podcast apps and follow @Tolkien Times on all your social media. Finally, as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.